and we're doing something a little bit different tonight. Uh, the wrestling world has heard and is mourning the passing of a very beloved wrestling character, but more so a really good friend to so many of us. And it's although it's very sad, it's my pleasure to welcome three very old friends onto the show tonight to share memories for a moment of our fallen comrade and friend. Paul London, Chris Masters, and Jimmy Yang Akio. Man, you guys, so good to see you guys. I wish it was under different circumstances. I really do. How you all doing?
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, this is a nice treat to see, fellow brothers and to reconvene, obviously under a tragic situation. But thanks for having us on, Rick.
Yeah, thanks,
No,
Rick.
guys, and I really
Yeah, thanks.
appreciate this. Like everybody else, I was shocked. I just found out about this 2 days ago, which is I think 3 weeks after Ryan passed, and I we all got the word on the same day. So it was a lot of shock in the wrestling world right now. I would say more so than we usually hear, and it's not to compare it because it's so sad when any of our friends fall. But I think a lot of people really felt this one. And Paul, why do you think? What's the vibe here with everybody?
I think anyone who met Ryan just was drawn into just how kind he was, like when I first got to UPW way back in probably 2001, I felt like such an outsider coming from Texas. And I want to say that Ryan was my one and only Galaxy show. Once I showed that I could hang, you put me in there with Ryan, and he was just so generous, but he was just soft spoken, but just so friendly, like in his eyes, in his demeanor. And he just wanted to enjoy being a professional wrestler, and he enjoyed it as much as the business, I guess, would allow. But anyone who came in contact with him instantly felt his passion for the business, but for life, and just being such a kind-hearted guy. And there's a lot of quote unquote nice or kind guys in wrestling or whatever, but you eventually you might see through that here and there, but not with Ryan. I mean, he was just he's one of the innocent ones, I mean, he's really innocent. Like you would never hear a bad thing about him, and he would never speak down about anybody or to anybody. I mean, he was just happy to be in the wrestling business, and that's a very infectious quality, especially when we all go through our struggles just to try and get noticed. So
You're describing him so well, and I think, man, like innocent, he was. He was like he was just on like Jimmy. You guys were really good friends, weren't you? And I know you probably have a million recollections and great memories. Is there one in particular that really stands out that you could share with us?
Yeah, it's like like I have a lot of memories with Ryan. Like just first time meeting him, just like Paul just described. Ryan just had that aura about him, that charisma that you instantly gravitated toward. Like it's like this dude's awesome. And so like me and Ryan's connection, like we first met him, he was awesome, but what we bonded over is our 90s vivid porn stars. So we love the Christy Canyons and Raquel Darians and Karen Kenners. It's like we actually swapped porn boxes one time when he's in OVW.
Oh my god!
So it's I got this. So that was our bonding.
Jimmy, I'm really happy that you shared that because seriously,
right?
I mean that because in times like this, we tend to get very sad and very serious, and for good reason. There's a story. If Todd Kennelly were here, there's a story. Todd and I were saying, would we tell it about him? Would it be appropriate? But that's what it's all about, man. I mean, he was such fun to be around. And Chris, I know you were really hit hard by this, Chris. Really hit hard, and I can feel it coming to you. What's going through your mind?
Well, first of all, that was hilarious, Jimmy, and that makes me think that's the
Come on,
second
Rick knows
funny.
this, right? Heck, Hollywood, baby.
That was the second. You remember Chris Cage in OVW and then WWE?
Yeah.
Yeah, he had this hilarious story earlier, but I don't want to retell it because I would destroy it. But he was telling me about how Ryan made it his mission to get Cage to get hooked up on his given night where they went out, and he spent his whole night invested in that, and actually came through for him. But I just want to say this. I want to say like. What you said, Paul, man, that was like right on the money. Like it's been such a long time that it's hard to remember some of the details of the, like even with Ryan, it's been a while, man. Like I remember specific things, but what you said about his character and the energy he gave off was all spot on, man. Like he was one of the good ones, man. And he really was as kind as you said, man. And like me and him got signed to WWE together. So, and I can think of countless times where Ryan, I was so dumb to the business, as a fan all throughout growing up, but then you get in and you don't know all the etiquette and all the little things. So Ryan was constantly, having to put fires out for me everywhere I went. And, I just always remember I went to a WWE SmackDown for, how they come up to look at the talent. And I was so fired up because Dawn Marie was so into me. And she was like, she kept flirting with me and everything. And I thought it was the coolest thing ever. And I was kind of giving some of it back. But then Ryan was like, he smarted me up. He's like, nah, dude, you can't be doing that, man. Like, you're going to bury yourself before you even get there. You can't be hooking up with the divas before you even get signed or anything like that. So it was just little things. It was little things like that with Ryan, man, where he was constantly, he'd just constantly be helping me inside and outside the ring. And, it was just really sad, man. The circumstances hit hard, and to know that it happened as long ago as it did is still something that hurts. And, I hope that we get more answers on all this. So,
yeah, Chris, after this, I'm going to, tomorrow, I'm going to send a link out and try to put together a Zoom for, all his UPW friends. Jimmy, we'd love to have you if you would join us. I know we came up in different parts of the country, but it'd be great if you would join us. And I think we can really get more information and get into it. I know a lot of us want to know. People are asking, and thanks again, you guys, for coming onto this tonight.
Thanks for having us, Rick.
What's going on? Everybody appreciates it. I'm reading the comments. And guys, Bas and Butterbean and Shawn will be up in a moment. We are paying tribute to a good friend and fallen comrade, Ryan KG Sakoda. I have a lot of memories of Ryan also. Just one real quickly. As much as I always would like to think I was one of the boys, I know I was not one of the boys. I'm a promoter, and I get it. So I stand apart, not above, apart, probably below. After Chris, you and Ryan, you remember, you got your WWE contracts the same day. They used to get mailed to my office. I remember having the pleasure of giving them out. And Ryan grabbed Jungle Girl, Erica Porter, our women's champion, and he made the biggest point of taking me and my wife out to dinner at the hotel at Disneyland where he worked. And he was so proud to be able to do that and so genuinely appreciative that I actually felt like one of the boys for a night. So that was super cool. And that's how I always think of him. And guys, thank you. We could go all night. I don't want to keep you. I said
this is awesome. And I've always thought of you as one of the boys, Rick. I never looked at you as a promoter, and you certainly never come off as a promoter ever in any light. You are one of the boys as far as I'm concerned, and you always have been. And organizing this right here just proves it, and I think something that maybe people didn't even know about Ryan was just how funny he was. Especially I remember in OVW, which was its own kind of mind fuck, that he had so many good impressions, whether it was of Rip Rogers or of Horseshoe. His Horseshoe impression was
oh my God, you're right. How did I forget?
His impression.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
Because I remember I got called up and got out of Louisville as fast as I could, and he was still there, and I could see the wear on him from being there because, he's SoCal guy, and he's, tight with his family, and so he's now in Louisville. But he was telling me this story about going out to a Longhorn Steakhouse and how Horseshoe, it was this big dinner, and he said that the waiter messed up his order or something, and that Horseshoe, and I couldn't nearly do the justice of impersonating Horseshoe like Ryan did, but told this story about Horseshoe telling the waiter, like, you're going to cover this meal. And the waiter's like, okay, I'll cover your meal. And he goes, all of it.
Yeah.
And the way that Ryan would do it would just kill me. And it was
That's
just
you right there.
God,
we'll have to come back and do. We'll come back and do a whole episode on Horseshoe one night. That would be fun.
A two-parter.
At the risk of cutting short, because this really is cutting it short. Thank you guys so much, man. It's so good to see all you guys. And I'm going to send a message out. Let's get us all together with some of other Ryan's friends and really dig deep, if that's cool with you.
That sounds good.
Would love that. Would love that.
For sure.
You got to find
Thank
out
you
what
guys.
happened.
Yeah.
So, Paul, so good to see you. Sorry to cut you short there.
No,
man.
thanks, guys.
Sorry,
I love you.
take
You
care,
know
guys.
that.
Love you guys, man. You guys are brothers.
We'll see you guys soon. Thank you.
All right.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Rick.
So, guys, paying tribute to Ryan Sakoda, and now bringing on my co-host for Talking Tough, the beautiful bald brigade. I just thought of that. Kind of like that. Bas Rutten, Butterbean, Shawn. We need like a B. What's your middle name, Shawn?
Irvin. I'm named after my dad's mom's second husband, Irvin.
Total sense.
I was hoping it started with a B. Guys, good to see you. Here we are back on Talking Tough. I hope everyone's doing well tonight. We talk about not judging books by covers here on Talking Tough, and we have a guest coming up a little bit later, none other than JBL. And everyone that follows pro wrestling, and that's a lot of our listeners, they know the story that involves Bas and JBL. And JBL comes with a reputation. And I talked to him about this, guys. I told him I was going to talk about this, and he wasn't super thrilled, but it'd be like ignoring the elephant in the room. Yeah. Everyone knows his rep as the tough guy, the enforcer behind the scenes, sometimes called the bully. The JBL I know is a whole different guy, and I'm looking forward to be able to talk about the stories, face the elephant in the room, and then get to know the person. That's my goal tonight.
Me
Bas,
too.
what do you think?
Yeah, no, me too. Because I only heard the things, But I think already, because in the preparation for him for this interview, I already realized that when he plays the heel, he plays the heel. He goes into character. I mean, if you go to Germany and you start saluting like Hitler did, and thinking you can get away with that means like he grabs it full on, and it doesn't mean anything about his character. That means like, okay, I'm the bad guy. I'm going to be the bad guy. And that's what he is. He personas, he embodies it. And then I think sometimes you might get carried away later on, because you hear about a lot of actors, right? Look at the guy, Heath Ledger from the Joker. Apparently, the whole reason that this happened is because he got too deep into the character, the method acting. And that's what I think it happened with JBL as well. So, but I'm sure he's a good guy.
Thank you, Bas. And that's an interesting point. Just a little bit of wrestling stuff for a second. Being a Bas, you got to think about when you guys fought. I mean, you hit that gym for a month, 2 months, 3 months, whatever it is. Shawn, your preparation phases are even longer. Then you get out in front of the public once every few months and you do your thing. These guys adopt a character, a larger than life, somewhat, fictional character based on their real persona. And there's no off season in pro wrestling. Right. They have to go out and be that character 365 days a year. So you can imagine why they might, to a degree at least, become that after a while. So, Bas, extremely good point. Extremely good point.
Thank
you. And Lord Dowski is asking, where's JBL? He will be with us shortly, our friends. JBL will be here, we promise you. He was just in touch with John and Rachel, our producers. He's waiting in the wings. He's patient. He's looking forward to this.
I like Mike D right here. Why do women trust bald men? Because the answer is because bald men have nothing to hide.
That's awesome. Shawn, what's going on with you this week, my friend?
Yeah, I mentioned to you I was headed to Columbus, Ohio for the Arnold Classic and a kid by the name of Nick Walker won, 26 years old. He was my pick going into the competition. Arnold was there, had a boot on his calf. He injured his calf chasing after his miniature ponies that he has at his house. But it's ironic, as you go to these shows, you literally see, like, when I first went, what was 1989? Was that 33 years ago?
It's a long time ago.
32, 33, yes.
He was 26 years old, right? I competed in 1990 and 91. This kid wasn't even born when I started going to this show, and Arnold's been there every single year, just like I have since 1989. And you kind of see the birth of these new careers. He won it on his first time. And then you see the aging of Arnold with the boot on his foot, right? And Ronnie Coleman with the crutches and the back surgeries and kind of crunched over. So you see guys getting older, and then you see these fresh new faces coming on. So while you kind of look at the sport dying off, you also see the rebirth of the new blood coming up. It was kind of a cool weekend.
That sounds really cool, man. I read a little bit about Line. It sounded like a really fun place to be last weekend. I saw a lot of posts about it. Bean,
they didn't have the expo. They didn't have the expo because of the whole COVID restrictions, but it was nice to just watch the show. Fitness, bodybuilding, classic, and women's bikini. And so you didn't have to
always up for a good women's bikini competition. Bean, what's going on with you, man?
You know, I did an appearance this weekend. I was not feeling up to par. I've been kind of down a little bit. I found a camper I wanted to buy, and it fell through. I didn't get it. So I was a little down. And today, I was doing an appearance this weekend up in the mountains of Tennessee. And this young kid come up, about 9 or 10, looking at my stuff. You know, I saw pictures and saw autographs and do things when I'm at the appearance. And he looked and goes, "Are you Butterbean?" I go, "Yeah." He goes, "The real one that knocked out Johnny Knoxville?" Yeah. He goes, "Wow." And he's looking at my stuff. He goes, "I don't have no money, but can I just shake your hand?" So I shook his hand, and he still kept like standing there just staring at me, looking at the stuff. And I look at him, and he starts crying. Like there's tears running down his face. I mean, like something's really disturbing him. He didn't know parents are with him. He's probably 9 or 10. And I go, "Come here." And I call him back there to me, and I'm like, "What's the matter?" He goes, he just couldn't talk. He was just crying. He started crying heavy. I go, "What's wrong? Come on, you can talk to me." He goes, "I just never thought I'd really get to meet you."
Wow.
You know, I'm telling you what, all my sadness it went away right there. I mean, I just felt really like, wow. If I can touch somebody like that, it really got to me. I mean, it's like, I'm just a regular guy. I mean, I go out there and have fun. I mean, but to make somebody's day like that just made me feel really good.
Yeah, it makes it all worth it, man. You know, Ronnie Coleman got the Lifetime Achievement Award at the Arnold Classic, presented to him by Arnold. Now, Ronnie's been around the world. He's won 8 Olympias. He won the Arnold Classic. And here he is receiving the Lifetime Achievement Award from Arnold, and he's bawling his eyes out. He's crying like a baby, and he's saying, his mom passed away. He said, "Mom, I'm getting the Lifetime Achievement Award from Arnold, the greatest bodybuilder ever." Now, that's arguable because Ronnie Coleman would crush Arnold in a bodybuilding show. But we know Arnold, with the mystique and the aura and all the body of work that he's accomplished and where he came from, he's clearly the greatest bodybuilder. Ronnie Coleman was reduced to tears. So that reminds me of that situation. You know, you got a guy that's blown away by who you are and what you're accomplished. He wasn't even born probably when you were doing your thing, right?
No, he was. Yeah, I retired probably before he was born.
Yeah, and you still have that impact. That's got to feel good. Awesome.
That's cool, man. Fans are cool.
Mr. Bas Rutten, you're in an interesting place tonight. What are you up to, man?
You know, I'm at the office here at St. Michael's Abbey. It's a Catholic big monastery that we have here. It's the feast day of St. Michael, Gabriel, and Raphael, the 3 archangels. And what they have this big monastery, and this architect made it in such a way that today at 5:30 p.m., the light that comes through a window lights up the altar. And I made a time lapse of it, and it's really amazing. And while I was here, you know, they made this new beer. They have this beer brewery, and they were talking to people. There's a lot of people there. And all these priests are coming to me, and a lot of them are mixed martial arts fans. And then I realized this. And then I said, I got to do this thing with Shawn and with Butterbean, and everybody goes, "Butterbean, oh good." Let me tell you, Eric, you got a lot of priests as fans because everybody was
That is great. Boss,
What'd you do, Rick?
what do you think the brothers would? What do you think the brothers would say if you told them Shawn Ray wanted to come up and do a posing exhibition there?
I think they would love it. You know, they're more human than people believe. You know, the way they talk and the way you go, like some words they use, and you say, when you say, "Oh yeah, hell," and you go like, "Hell, can you say that?" You know, because I'm worried about saying that, but they are such a regular people, you have no clue, and I'm 100% guaranteed that they will love it.
Yeah, well, I won't be posing anytime soon. I just peeled a medium-sized pizza 5 minutes ago. I'm not posing.
Listen, if you say that, you're still better than 98% of all the people out there. Trust me. And that's not including the bodybuilders. That's including the bodybuilders. That's what I mean.
Oh, man.
And,
Rick, what'd you do?
Oh, sorry?
What did you do? I mean, we kind of doing our thing. What were you up to?
Oh, sorry. Dude, you know what? I had nothing interesting this week at all. Thank you for asking, but dude, nothing. I stayed home in Hawaii with my dogs and I worked. So I had like nothing to report this week at all.
Rick, you know how many people would like to trade places with you for that day in Maui, hanging out at home doing nothing? Sure. I'll trade places.
Listen, I gotta say,
trust me, man. I'm not complaining. I'm not complaining at all. Just nothing interesting. My best part of my week is getting to talk with you guys now, and here we are.
You know what? The thing that I have to say is, last week I helped induct Kevin Randleman into the UFC Hall of Fame, and let me tell you that it went freaking seamless. It was really good. His wife was doing a phenomenal speech. Mark Coleman, dude. He was on. He was so funny and so sincere. It was really great to see people are talking about fans that you said, Eric. We went to this after party, the VIP party before the fight started. And this woman comes up to me and she's like the biggest fan and she knows everything about me. And my wife stands next to me and she says, "Are you his wife?" "Yeah." "Oh, so your name is Karen." And you got this, and you knew the names of my daughter. She knew everything. You go like, okay, you know. And at the end, she was like, "Oh, I hope I'm not too much." I say, "You're never too much. You're freaking awesome." You know, somebody who knows that means that you've been following the sport for a long time. But it's cool how out of control fans can get in a good way.
Yeah.
Man, I wish I'd got to see that, boss. If you remember when Kevin passed, we all met in Vegas for that reception for him. And Elizabeth was a mess, of course. And I'll say this, and I know Mark won't mind, Mark Coleman. Mark was a mess, if you remember. He was not in a good place in his life. And I'm so glad to hear he was great there. This guy has made a recovery and come back out the other side like nobody else. So I'm so proud of Mark Coleman, and we got to have him on here soon for sure. The first UFC heavyweight champion.
Yep. Yeah,
we Mark and Kevin, they were both very close. They were close friends. They were really good friends.
Very close. I mean, they were like brothers.
I actually got the honor to fight on the same card as with Randleman a couple times. It was great having him in the same locker room. You know how that is, boss. In the same locker room, you kind of bond with the guys.
Yep. And this is the guy you talk to, you love him. You know, and everybody. He goes to a fan, and he makes you feel like you're the most important person in the room. You know, on the planet. He was just such a good dude. What a shame, man. That was not good news.
Okay, boss, I want to tell you my first recollection of Kevin. I was managing Mark Coleman and Mark Kerr at the time, and they came to San Clemente. And that was in the heyday of Mark and Mark when they were both crazy. So you can imagine how much fun that was. And Mark Coleman says, "Our friend Kevin Randleman is coming to visit." I'm like, "Of course, I know who he is." So he comes out. We go to the gym that I own. They train. The guy's a specimen and a machine. You remember that. Then we go out to the bar. And it's the four of us playing pool and having drinks, right? And Kevin goes, "Hey, come here." And I'm like, "Yeah?" He goes, "If I ever had a manager and the manager fucked me over, I'd kill him." Like, okay, all right.
Yeah.
Thank you, man. And then like this big grin breaks out. I'm like, that was fucking awesome. He got me pretty good. Kevin was a good dude. Guys, my reception is bad tonight. I may duck in and out. You guys, please take over at any time if stuff is going wrong on this end. I know we have this format we're running by, but I understand that JBL is already hanging out and waiting to come on. So I'm thinking, if you guys don't mind, why don't we bust the form out a little bit? Let's get ready in a moment to bring our guest up. And I want to ask if Butterbean, you know JBL a little bit or of him. You shared backstage at the Brawl for All. Boss, if you guys maybe on the spot could start to talk and prep about JBL a little bit, because I need to go change my connection for my Wi-Fi, and I'll be back in a minute.
All right. Well, so what was your encounter, Eric?
Oh, yeah, he's a great guy. I never really see when I entered wrestling, I didn't know nothing about it. I didn't know nothing about the guys. Didn't know the storylines. To me, it's just another job until I got to know the guys, and it's completely different backstage because you don't talk about. I never talked about wrestling. I didn't care talk about wrestling. I wanted to talk about other stuff. Right. So I mean, he was always considered one of the tough guys backstage, the real tough guys.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I heard as well. You know, that's why, and we're going to talk about this also on this show with the whole thing that happened to Mauro Ranallo. You know, and Mauro is a very close friend of mine. I actually put him in the commentating business because when I met that guy, I was like, dude, you need to be a commentator. This is crazy. So that when I introduced him when the Pride Fighting Championships let go of Steven Quadros, they asked me if I knew somebody, and I said I don't, but I knew about Mauro. But I was afraid because Steven is a good friend of mine, and I didn't want him to think that I was the person who got him fired or something. But anyway, they brought another guy in. The guy was a one-man radio show he had. So I literally, during the broadcast, I had to put my hand on his mouth because he wouldn't shut the hell up. You know, like because every time when I would see something, he would just keep on talking. So I literally put my hand on his throat. So then they asked me again, don't you know somebody? I said, well, I met this guy a long time ago. Maybe you should get him. And he said it in the tape, and they said, oh, we want him. And then he had this first show, and people were like freaking out. And now he's probably the best commentator on the planet. I mean, the guy is such a freak. You know, this is the guy who reads the script. When we met, we were doing this B movie thing, and we had to talk about a fight that wasn't filmed yet. And I said, that's never going to work. No, we built a fight around your commentating. I said, listen, that's never going to work. But anyway, we will do it. And we start talking. It was a 6-page script. And I start memorizing like a maniac. And then Mauro walks in 20, 30 minutes later. And I'm like constantly 6 pages. I got to, because my mind is not like freaking that guy. And he literally, if I say less than a minute, I'm not exaggerating. He was going over and he says, okay, let's go. And I go, what? You got it? He said, yeah. So I go to page number 3 and I say my line and he answers me what he had to say. I go, how do you do that? You know, and then when Pride Fighting Championships asked me, I go, yeah, I know this one guy who is freaking insane. And well, he came on the show and that was it. I mean, and now look at him, what he's doing. He's doing Bellator, he's doing WWE, he's doing Showtime boxing. He's doing everything. The guy's a freaking genius.
He's a phenomenally talented guy.
Naturally, I guess.
And he's a student too. He studies hard. Phenomenally talented guy, Mauro Ranallo.
There was a moment at Pride Fighting Championships when I wanted to say, oh, he's going to go for an armbar. And he beat me to it. He goes like, is he going for an armbar? I go, dude. I mean, because I sent him all my DVDs, you know, the instructionals. And he's a guy who learns. And people in the beginning, they would say, oh, he's fake. He's all acting it. But not Mauro, man. When you see him go, he goes crazy. That's really him. He's completely invested into the fight. And that's why he's such a great commentator.
He is great. And let's talk about JBL for a minute. But first, there's no question in this. But Mike DeBow says, Sugar's giant arms are nuts. That's all I got on that one. You're getting almost
thighs.
You're getting as many arm comments tonight as we're all getting bald comments. And that's something.
It happens when I wear a shirt that's one size too small.
It's working for you, man. It's working. So, guys, I told JBL when we're prepping for this that, you know, we try not to delve too much in the past or stick on the past. You know, but we know that we have wrestling fans out there, so they expect to hear some stories. So I'm going to press him. I think he can hear us right now. I'm not sure. But I'm going to press John a little bit to entertain the fans with some of the tall tales from behind the scenes. They love that stuff. But what I'm really looking forward to getting into is what JBL is doing now, what the world probably doesn't know, because he doesn't make a point about promoting it. This guy is like a humanitarian of the highest order. He has nonprofits that are running in Bermuda, in Africa, And he's spending a ton of time in those places, hands-on, making sure the kids that his charities affect are getting the benefit of the work. I find that pretty amazing and impressive. So with that said, let's bring on the biggest bully in the history of pro wrestling, JBL.
How you doing, guys?
Hey,
Hey, John.
Hey, I'm like a kid in a candy store. I'm a big fan of all you guys. Butterbean, I think I've seen every one of your 4-round fights. And Boss, we have a connection you don't know about with Guy Mesger. I trained with Guy Mesger training in the Brawl for All, and I remember how excited he was when he said, "Oh, Boss is on my next tour to Japan." So I had such really good feedback from Guy so many times. And Shawn, I've been a bodybuilding fan since Arnold and Franco. So all those top 5 finishes, I was pulling for you. So I'm excited and honored to be on with you guys.
All right, on
with the show, brother.
Yes.
John, and it's great to have you here. Now, you're excited. Imagine, from my vantage point, the average guy who's done nothing, looking at 4 world champions. I'm right now looking at legends from pro boxing, mixed martial arts, bodybuilding, and pro wrestling all together. So this is a beautiful picture. And John, we're really glad to have you, man. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
So,
and I'll tell you this, in the Brawl for All, they asked us right before the finals. I made it to the finals, and I'd never done anything like it. I loved it. That's when I was training in the Lions Den in Dallas with Guy Mesger. Ken Shamrock, who's a good friend of mine, had set that up. And they asked us before the fight between me and Bart, would you fight Butterbean or Tank? At the time, they didn't know who it was going to be. And I was so happy I was making money. I bought my first house with that, buddy. But I am certainly happy that Bart knocked me out, because Butterbean, I did not want to be in Bart's place against you, my friend.
Yeah, he got knocked out pretty bad.
Yeah, it was the difference between a pro fighter and just a big tough guy. Shamrock and I snuck over and watched you warm up a little bit. And when I saw you hitting the pads, it was so hard and so fast. I told Kenny, I said, "Oh my goodness!" I said, "Bart's in trouble, isn't he?" And he said, "Yeah, he's in a lot of trouble." And it was just the difference between a professional fighter and just a real big tough guy. Because Bart was a big tough guy, and Bart was a really good friend. I hated for him to lose, but that's what happens.
Yeah, if he would have come out just swinging like he did with all y'all, just come out there brawling, and he tried to box too much. That was his big downfall, I think.
That's right. He moved in with.
Knocked him out. Don't let me cut you off. I still would have knocked him out, but I think he would have done a lot better if he just come out swinging.
Yeah, he got trained by Mark Merrill's trainer, who Mark was, I think, a Gold Gloves champion or something in New York. And he got trained, and he kind of thought he turned himself into a boxer and took away his strength. And didn't end well for Bart, unfortunately.
Yeah.
It ended great for you, Butterbean.
Yeah. Here's an amazing thing. John, you probably know this, but after Bart wrapped up with WWE, he actually had a couple MMA fights, and I booked those fights for him and repped him on those deals. In his very first, I don't know if you know this, in his very first, he beat Cabbage in his first fight. So he was not a slouch by any means, but nonetheless, John, you're absolutely right. He was not a trained fighter at that time, at least, and did that make a difference? Wow.
Yeah. That's how it goes. That's with these actors, some actors, they do a boxing movie and then they say, "Hey, maybe I should do a real boxing match." I go, don't do a real boxing match. It's different.
Well, that was the whole problem with the Brawl for All. We were older, guys that, may have been tough, may not have been, but we had no training with that. So it was pretty even, but we had all been injured a lot. We were 35. We weren't 25 doing this, and so when we got out there, nobody had any training, and it was a lot of fun, but it was a really stupid idea to try to figure out who's the toughest pro wrestler. That's not what we do. And I told them when they did it, they called me on a Thursday and said, "You want to be in a shoot fight on Monday?" And I said, "Why would I do that?" They go, "We're going to have a tournament." I said, "That's the dumbest thing I ever heard." I said, "I'll enter it, but you're going to have somebody win that you don't know is the best fighter. You can't, because you can't fix this." I think they thought Dr. Death Steve Williams would win. Well, 10 years previous, he probably would have. And, he'd gotten older. He had concussions, and that was the problem, the whole thing with the whole Brawl for All. It just didn't make much sense to put in the middle of a pro wrestling show.
Yeah, and a lot of people got hurt. And, we were talking earlier, John, before you came on, about like the realities of pro wrestling, man. You guys, especially back then, you're on the road 24/7, 365 days a year. There's no off season, taking a physical beating every single night. I mean, you're injury prone already going into something like that, I would imagine. Did a lot of guys get hurt doing that?
Yeah, it ended some careers, unfortunately. Henry Godwin had broken his neck. I fought Henry first. He was a good friend of mine, and he had broken his neck taking the finish from the Road Warriors. And Henry asked me afterwards, is your neck bothering you? And I said, no, I'm actually okay. And sure enough, the punches, he never wrestled again. You had Godfather who blew out his leg really bad. You had Savio Vega, Brackus. I mean, there's so many guys that got injured. We were older guys stuck into a professional fight environment. And to me, it just didn't make any sense. Now, I will say this. When they asked me, they said, you want to be in a fight, the tournament on Monday? I said, is Shamrock and Severn in it? And they said, yes. I said, could you put me in a different bracket? That way at least I can get one win before I get beat.
That was good thinking. That was good thinking. So, John, we have a lot of pro wrestling fans watching this, so you're getting a lot of questions. You can imagine. I'm going to throw a couple at you guys. One thing I learned talking to John, especially I've known John for years, not well, but always have liked you. You've never treated me with anything but respect. You've always been so nice to me, and there was always a disconnect between the guy you hear about in this reputation and who you were. To my experience, John, why did you have or do you have that rep? And you know what I'm asking you, of course.
Yeah, maybe I could have deserved it. I don't know. We were younger, we broke balls, and I was a loud guy from the South, and a lot of people I think took that wrong. I can tell you, like with Mauro, there was never any malicious intent ever toward anything I said toward Mauro, anything I said on camera, that was all in character. But, some of it could be deserved. I'm not trying to rewrite my history. I wasn't a saint. We drank a lot back then, and, we ran the roads, and we always loved to crack on each other. It was just part of what we did. And I think a lot of people took that wrong, and some of it could have gone too far. I'm not trying to excuse anything I've done.
It's something, because we were talking about this before we got on the show. Like sometimes, because with you, for instance, I read the things about you, and when you get in character, when you're the heel, you're the freaking heel. You commit 100%. Right. When I read the thing about Germany, when you walked out and you did the salute and you start marching around, I go, okay, now I got a little bit of an idea what kind of guy he is. And because most of the time when you do that, you get so invested. And sometimes you carry that outside because it kind of feels good. We all like to play the real bad guy. And if it feels good, sometimes it rubs off a little bit in your normal life. You think that's something that happened also there with you?
Yeah, boss, I think there's any doubt about that. When we started, we protected the business 24/7. So I wrestled in Europe for Otto Vance, who was a childhood chum, Otto and Peter William in Austria and Germany. And you had to be in character 24/7. We lived on the parking lots outside of the carnival tents and had to wrestle. And so they wanted us in character all the time, not just in the ring. Walk around town, somebody tries to get an autograph for you, you bark at them, and that kind of carried forward. And I'm one of the last groups to have done that. And so, yeah, I don't think there's any doubt that some of that went too far. And some of it was me being in character. And again, I'm not trying to excuse myself. I'm just kind of explaining from my perspective kind of how it happened.
So what exactly happened then with Mauro? What was the thing that went on?
Well, there was a show that we did called Bring It to the Table. And that was one of the big contentious points. As far as, anything I said on camera, that was 100% in character. Anything I said backstage, I don't think there was anything. I can't speak for Mauro. So there was no malicious intent ever on anything backstage. I thought I got along with Mauro fairly well. But the show Bring It to the Table, Mauro had a travel problem. There was a snowstorm across the country and he didn't make a show. And I'm not sure what all happened, but there was a snowstorm. He couldn't make travel. Those things happen. During that same time, we did this show called Bring It to the Table. And everybody points to that show as the point of me taking a shot at Mauro. Well, on that show, right before we did it, there was about 3 to 5 minutes we needed for the show. And I said, what can we do? And I said, hey, there's this internet poll that makes Mauro the number one announcer. Could you do something on that? I said, yeah, of course. So when he went on the show, I did a rant on the show about, they're calling Mauro the number one announcer. He's retweeted it, blah, blah, blah. 100% in character. And people talk about that poll, that I was so jealous of that poll that I went on TV and talked about it. I didn't know the poll existed until right before he went on the show. And that was me. I just assumed Mauro knew that that was something I had done in character. In fact, when the show aired, Meltzer, the online guy who does all the backstage news, they said Meltzer's mad at you. And I hadn't heard that name in quite a while because it's behind a paywall, his stuff. So I didn't read it. I didn't keep up with it. And I said, why is he mad? And they said, well, that was his poll. I had no idea. I had no idea. People talk about so much how I was so mad about that poll. I had no idea the poll existed. That was just me being JBL on camera. And I think Mauro took that the wrong way. I hope he didn't. I hope now he realizes that that was something that I did that was 100% in character. I saw Mauro, I think a few weeks later, everything fell out and I became the bad guy with everything. And I saw him, he was standing for a car and he was on his phone. I think it was New Orleans. Anyway, I walked across the parking lot and he was on his phone, so I couldn't talk to him. But I shook his hand, just went across, shook his hand. And he said, how you doing, man? I said, it's good, brother. And just left, just to let him know that there was no ill intent, at least of me toward him. I regret the whole situation. I wish that Mauro had known, for sure. I think that was one of the things that was really upsetting. I know it was upsetting to a lot of fans because they all talked about that show.
Yeah. Yeah, well, at least, you're in character. And then, on one side, you did something right? I mean, you were in character. So, yeah, I hope that it's good that you walked over. I hope that you guys can mend things also, that he sees it as well and can, just bury the hatchet.
I hope so. He seems like a good guy. And, again, if there was anything backstage I ever said to him that he thought crossed the line, there was never any malicious intent. Our slowest time right before shows is right before we go out. All your homework's done, everything's finished. You're just kind of waiting for the show to start. That's where we sit around and just banter and, crack on each other. And I hope something that I said in that was not taken wrong. And if it was, then I apologize for that. The WWE did a postmortem on all of it and said that there wasn't, at least from what I heard. I haven't seen the report or anything. So anyway, I have no ill intent toward Mauro. I regret the entire situation because he seemed like a really not only talented, we all know that, but he seemed like a good guy.
Yeah.
So the most important thing, so what are you up to right now?
Well, right now I've got working with this wonderful group out of Memphis. It's called Memphis Inner City Rugby. We got it's one of the worst child poverty in the USA, and we've got a program that we got 100% graduation rate, 100% non-incarceration rate, 100% of kids are getting placed after school, either college, trade school, or military. And that's my big focus. Really working hard in poverty areas. I've done a lot down in Malawi and Uganda, Rwanda, Tanzania area. And I really enjoy working kind of in deep poverty areas where kids are kind of left behind.
Nice.
That's one thing. Kids touch me. I mean, I do a lot of children's charities. I mean, I don't do a lot of adult charities because, like you say, the kids need a chance.
Yeah, and that's the big thing is kids need a chance. We had a kid in Bermuda in one of the program that I started, and the kid got a traffic citation. He was going to jail, and he deserved to be punished. I'm not saying that he didn't, but he was going to go to jail for a $300 ticket. If that kid had parents, they just pay the ticket, and he gets in trouble. But this kid, because he's from a low-income area and as a single-parent home, he was going to go to prison for that. And that's just not fair. And I don't like the inequities that we have in low income areas, and that's the reason I like to work there so much.
How did you come up with living in Bermuda? How does that come about?
I got hurt when WWE. I broke my back and I had to retire. As you do when you get older. And I went to Bermuda for the summer. And I saw a lot of problems they had with at-risk gang type kids. And I wanted to do something to help them. And so I put together this program to work with them. And we needed somebody to help the one guy we had hired. We didn't have money to do it. So I stayed there for a while because I didn't have to pay myself. I could work for free. And I stayed there to work with those kids for a while. Kind of fell in love with the place and ended up staying 9 years.
Which is what I was going. Now, what about the body now? That was you leaving the sport. How's the body holding up now today?
So. Not great. I've had about 13 surgeries. I got a bad shoulder. I've had torn bicep on both sides. You guys are no strangers to injuries. And it's just, I work out at a pretty hardcore gym there in DC, Gold's Gym, and they kind of give me the old man pass. They let me work out in the hardcore area because I used to be hardcore. So it's not great. I still enjoy training. I still can get around, but nothing like I used to.
Listen, this is the thing with pro wrestling, right? So I've been professional fighting, full contact for many years. Still, I go to New Japan Pro Wrestling. I did like 12 shows for them. The first one, I break a disc in my back. The second one, I rupture my eardrum. The third one, they poke me in the eye, I have a blind spot. My wife actually tells me, this is 3 shows. You guys do 200 shows a year. She goes like, why don't you go back to real fighting? You never had those injuries. Pro wrestling, people, when they go like, oh, but they, it's fake. I go, dude, in 3 shows, I was almost ruined. And these guys do 220 shows a year. It's insanity because the falls are real. Everything is real and mistakes are made. It's insane how much injuries you guys have.
Yeah, and Ken Shamrock used to say the same thing. He said, in real fighting, we can avoid being hit. In what pro wrestling is, we got to get hit. And you got to get hit a lot. And it just kind of wears the body out.
Yep, exactly, because that's what my wife said. I just normally I block those punches. I tell you a real fast story because this is a hilarious story. The first fight I do for New Japan, we're in Tokyo in the Tokyo Dome, 55,000 people. Don Fry is in my corner. I'm fighting the number 2 guy. I don't remember his name. And we went over the whole thing. Anyway, he was going to throw me in the corner, and then he was going to give me 3 elbows, and on the 4th elbow I would drop, and then I would take an 8 count and this whole thing. So he gives me the first elbow, and I don't know what these guys are saying about me behind stage, right? So I'm thinking maybe they think that, oh, I'm going to hurt Bas Rutten, watch me tonight. So the first elbow is perfect. Second time is harder. The third one is a full-on hit. And I get hit, and my automatic reflex is boom, and I knock him out. 55,000 people, the guy's on the ground, and everybody's looking at Don Fry. It's like, oh, shit, this is not good. And then the referee starts walking around him like 3 circles, and he goes, 1, and he walks another circle. Slowly but surely he starts waking up. It was so funny because the second show, they came to me before the fight, and they said, hey, please, Mr. Rutten. I said, it's very simple. You don't hit me, I don't hit you. I don't know what you guys are talking about. But yeah, that was a crazy situation.
Now, John, I don't know if you know this, but Butterbean had a career in pro wrestling also. Were you aware of that?
Yeah, I'd heard that. In fact, I heard that Butterbean had offered to throw the fight against Bart. Was that true?
You know what? If they were paying enough money, I didn't care.
That's what I heard. I heard that you were willing to work or fight.
Yeah, I had no problem with it.
So John, Bean was part of Hulk Hogan's Celebrity Championship Wrestling, where Brian Knobbs and Brutus Beefcake played the trainers. And actually, it was my crew and Tom Howard's that actually did the training with Butterbean and Dustin Diamond and Dennis Rodman. And I'll say this to this day, Bean, not because you're my friend, because Dennis Rodman was declared the winner, and that was such a work. Bean was definitely the best pro wrestler on that show, no doubt about it.
we had one of the young guys
for a little bit over a month, and it was rough on the body. By the end of the deal, I was wore out. My body was give out.
See, pro wrestling again.
We had one of the guys when I was in Europe, one of the young guys that was working for, I think, Inoki, had come over and he had done it. We went back to Japan to do a fight, and we asked him, said, was that a shoot? And he goes, oh, yeah, it was a shoot. I said, oh, okay. He was a tough kid. We didn't think anything of it. Then we see the pictures, and there's a moonsault in it. Come on.
Fun stuff, man. You guys are nuts. I was with the Steiner brothers. Oh, those guys are
legendary guys.
JBL, what do you miss? What do you miss about those days? Obviously you're way beyond it, but if you had to go back, like what part would you find yourself really enjoying when you were in character or not?
Probably being
Yeah.
villain, right?
Just the walking out, man. It was so awesome to be able to walk out. And when you did it right, you don't get it right all the time. And you think you think you get it right one night, you try it again, and the next night you fail or you don't do it near as well. But when you get it right, when I was wrestling, like the last matches, you'd wrestle, 25, 30 minutes at night. You take people really on a roller coaster ride. You get them mad, you get them happy, you get them behind the good guy, you get them to boo you. And when you leave and it was done right, man, it's just the greatest feeling in the world that people paid their money to come see you and they felt like it was money well spent and they had a good time. It's really hard to find anything that gets you a feeling that good.
I think maturity, the further away from the stage you get, the more it crystallizes that's the part that you really miss the most, right? Like
yeah, absolutely. When you first get out, you don't have good perspective on it. And when you first get out, I tried to play pro football for a while, and I coached 1 year in college, and I still wanted to play, and I wasn't a very good coach.
Yeah.
And I thought, years later, I would have been a good coach because I didn't have the desire to be a player anymore. And the same thing in commentary with wrestling. When I first got out, I went straight into commentary. I didn't think I was as good as I was later because I didn't have the desire to get back in the ring. Now I'm just a fan calling the action, and it just makes so much difference with perspective.
That is absolutely correct. I mean, I do commentating too, just like Bas. I'm not sure if Butterbean does, but during the commentating, you see things that, like, when we did it, there were a lot of things we missed. But we're like in the bird's nest, looking down on the action taking place. We see it before it actually happens because we lived it, so we're able to articulate it.
Yeah, and you get mad about it because you think, why didn't I think about that?
That's it. You need a time machine.
No, did you have like with me, for instance, right? And many fighters and many athletes have the same thing. Like after the fighting, because the feeling that you just talked about, we really love that feeling, right? You knock somebody out, you do something right, the entrance, whatever it is, knock somebody out in front of 50,000 people. It's a feeling that you cannot replicate. So once you stop, for me, it was like I went to alcohol and you try to replace it with something else, which is not real. Is that something you had as well when you came out of it?
No doubt about it. Yeah. And I did the same thing. I drank heavily when I retired and kind of past that phase now because I kind of look back and enjoy the career because I'm too old to do it. But yeah, it's a real letdown and there's nothing you can really replace from it. I always thought, guys don't necessarily go through a depression, back in the days when you took steroids, when you played sports or stuff and guys would get off, they say, well, it's because of steroids. No, it's not. It's because you're depressed. The fact that you can't go out there anymore. Now, maybe it's added to the fact that you stopped taking, something that would make you feel better to boot. But it's really just the fact that you can't go out there anymore. It's really you're trying to find yourself in life. And that's a tough thing to do.
Yeah. I mean, we can look at what's happening with John Jones, right? Like, he's arguably the greatest MMA guy out there doing this. And he can't get out of his own way.
Right. Yeah. You look at guys like Michael Jordan who end up at the Wizards, and I don't blame him. Play all you can because once you're done, you're done. You got the whole rest of your life to relax and rest. And people get mad at guys because they play too long, but why not? Why not play as long as you can? Because once you're done, you got a long time to be retired.
That's true. That's for
John, I don't know if you caught the beginning of our show tonight or not, but we were talking about Ryan Sakoda. He was in WWE for a short while as Sakoda, and he came up out of our system. Really, really nice guy. And he just passed recently at 48. And a lot of the demons that you and Bas are talking about, what advice, if any, do you offer to guys post-career about keeping it together?
You got to find something to do for the rest of your life. You can't just go to autograph sessions. You can't just kind of relive some glory days. There's old football story, the All-American, his own movie. And it kind of chronicles the same thing. If a guy's done and you just kind of go to shake hands, you get paid for it. You got to find something that's worthwhile in life. When I went down to South Africa for the 2010 football soccer World Cup, and I saw this program there that it was changing lives in that huge shanty town outside of Cape Town. And I thought, what have I done my whole life? Why wasn't I doing something like this? Right. And that's kind of replaced what I've done. And we had our kids in Bermuda the first time. These kids had never played rugby. We won our first championship it was better than walking out in front of 76,000 people. It was the greatest thing ever. You take these kids, most of them don't have parents, and they win a championship, and they're so freaking happy. And there's nothing like that. But you got to find your own whatever that is. For me, that's kind of what it is. I still miss it. I mean, don't get me wrong. When I'm out there on the field, I thought, man, I'd rather be going somewhere and wrestling in Madison Square Garden. But you still miss it, but you got to find something to do.
And
I got a question for you. What was, like, out of everything you've done, what's what you consider is the biggest achievement you've accomplished? I mean, it may be something that other people will think, but in your heart, what is the thing that means the most to you?
I think I had a championship run. At the time, it was a record-length run, and it came really late in my career. And I thought that my career was over. I had 2 hernia surgeries. I had a torn bicep. I had all kinds of injuries. I thought my career was over. And at the last minute, I had to come back and wrestle. And they ended up putting the championship on me for quite some time. And that run to me was so unexpected. You know, if I'd have had it when I was 24 or 25, I'm not sure I would have enjoyed it as much as, because I was 40, I think I was. I mean, I was old for a first-time champion, and I just enjoyed every second of it. I mean, it was so much fun. And I remember when John Cena came along, and just the joy of helping a young guy that I knew was going to be the guy. I didn't know he'd be the guy that did all the movies and 16-time world champion, but I knew he was going to be the guy, and I knew my job was to make him as good as possible by making myself the bad guy as much as possible. And I remember that day when I walked out of the Staples Center at WrestleMania when he'd won the title from me, and he's now the guy. And I just thought, that's cool. I'm done. I mean, I've had it. And that was a cool feeling to kind of think, you know what, that was a good way to walk out.
Hey, did they let you keep, like, the championship belt? Like, do you have your belt? Do you got your belts, Butterbean and Boss? Or are they belts that you have until you lose them, you got to give them back?
No, like in boxing, I don't know about wrestling, but once you win in boxing, it's your belt.
So you have your own belt. How's it in wrestling?
Well, fortunately, there was an old traditional championship belt, and when Cena became the champion, he put a spinner belt on it, made this new belt that all the old purists got mad at. So there wasn't the old belt anymore, so I got to keep it. I think most guys don't get to keep it, but that belt was no longer being used.
Nice. What about you, Bob?
I had the same thing. I had it in Japan, officially they were not giving you the belt, but the fan club was such a big fan club. They gave me a belt. And also what Prankler said, like, I'm a 3-time world champion, but officially, if you fight like everybody else, I have 15 world titles, because what Prankler did, you're a world champion, and then you fight a few regular fights. You don't defend your title, which normally it will never happen. But if that would have happened, every fight would have been I would have had 15 world titles. It would have been much cooler.
Yeah, that's crazy. I just, for some reason, when you lose the belt and you hand it to the next guy, I'm like, that's it. You don't have a copy. Like, you don't get to keep it. That sucks.
Hey, yeah, most of the time in wrestling, you don't. Most of the time in wrestling, you lose it, and the other guy walks out with it. And that's it.
Oh, man.
That hurts.
Well, yeah, guys, in wrestling, even John, correct me if I'm wrong, please. But I know a lot of guys in wrestling are kind of glad to get rid of the belt. Not always, but for a couple of reasons. One is because that damn thing is heavy, and they're on the road all the time. They don't really want to carry that around with them. Isn't that pretty accurate, John?
Yeah, guys get sick of, especially not the main belt, but maybe the lesser titles, not the heavyweight championship. Guys get tired of carrying it through airports, because invariably you'll put it on your carry-on bag because you can't risk losing it. And some guy at airport screening will end up holding it up, or at 5 o'clock in the morning. Go, hey, look, we got this.
But by the way, John, I just want to ask you. There was a surprise to me. You're the King James Bible translator. You heard that before, right?
I have heard that. Yes, yes.
That was in 1563, though. Then I realized, it's not him.
But boss, what in the world does that mean? I am so lost right now.
You what?
What does that mean? I'm so lost right now.
Oh, no. So his name, John Layfield, apparently the guy who translated the King James Bible, his name is John Layfield as well.
Another guy, namesake, yeah.
Yep.
And John, you didn't do that in addition to the missions to Africa? That's not
a couple
you?
hundred years ago.
No, my father was a biblical scholar. My dad was a good man. Just passed away a couple of years ago at 88 years old. Good man, but he was a biblical scholar and ordained minister. So I don't know. He grew up very poor, so I don't know if he knew about the John Layfield from the King James Bible or not. I know as I got older, he would tell me that.
All right. Wow. Yeah, that would be something. That would be something if he named you after him.
That's right.
Hey,
So-
John, on this, we always do between me, Bas, Shawn, we always do what we call a war story. To me, I think to hear one of your war stories of like one of the matches that meant the most, I think that'd be great to hear. Let you do it. You're our first guest. I'd love to hear one of your war stories, something that stands out that a lot of people don't know about already.
Sure. Yeah, we were going to be in the Staples Center, and Vince called me and said, "Hey, we need you for a main event." Brock Lesnar had decided to leave and go try out in the NFL. Big Show was hurt. Kurt Angle was hurt, and they needed a guy right away. So they took me kind of in semi-retirement and put me in this match with Eddie Guerrero. And we weren't selling any tickets. We weren't doing very well at all. And the character wasn't getting over. And Eddie comes to me, him and his brother Chavo come to me and say, "Hey, we got this idea. In El Paso, it's Mother's Day, and we're wrestling for the championship. After the match, we're going to give Mom flowers. You come down and hit Eddie with a chair, and Mom's going to fake a heart attack. And we're going to film it from security cameras, and so it doesn't look like it's a put-up a show." And so when we did that, I come down, hit Eddie with the chair, and I hit him mistakenly, and I busted him open. So a little blood's coming down him. And I turn around, a 74-year-old mother. I reach around like I'm going to grab her. But what I'm doing is I'm allowing her to grab my hand and fall. And when she went down, the entire arena got silent. You could hear a pin drop. And Eddie goes, "Esse, you better get the fuck out of here." and we had state troopers everywhere. And I look around, and the place was just rumbling. It was insane. Yeah. So by the time I get to the back, they're going, "John, get out of here. Get out of here, John. Get out of here." And I'm yelling at the fans. I'm thinking, this could be it. This could be it. I'm the big tough guy. I finally get to the back. My car's running. They take me all the way to the city limit sign, and the police say, "We can't guarantee your safety. Don't come back to El Paso. Go to Odessa to fly to the next town." Wow. And so they pull off, and I go about 2 miles, and I run into a border checkpoint. Now, Eddie has busted me open right above the eye, and I'm bleeding. I've got no shirt on. I got wrestling trunks and boots. My stuff's in the back of the car, and that's how I get stopped at the border checkpoint, covered in blood, my own blood. And
they haven't seen it.
I talked my way out of it, but the next time we go out, we had to have security for me. I mean, anytime we'd wrestle in a large Latino community, because Eddie Guerrero was so popular, I had to have extra security. Guys were jumping in the ring, and we ended up setting an attendance record at the Staples Center with for all these about 99% of Latinos wanting to see me get killed.
I appreciate that. So that's awesome.
Oh, I love it.
And for years, I would walk through around downtown New York when I lived there with my wife, still married, but we don't live there anymore. And you'd see a Latino crew, and you'd hear them cussing at me. "Cabron, that's Cabron, Eddie Guerrero, Cabron."
What about Ric Flair? Did you ever have any interaction with Ric Flair at all? He's one of my favorites back in the day.
Oh, a ton with Rick. Yeah, absolute ton with Rick. I always liked Rick. I know they just did some thing on him. Rick to me was great to the guys, incredibly generous, and I always enjoyed him. He was so good at what he did. He wrestled hour Broadways every single night. Over 200 nights a year, he'd do an hour Broadway. Now, he wrestled 250 to 300 nights a year. The amount of wear and tear on his body is astronomical.
Mm-hmm.
Did he have a problem when he stopped competing?
Flair?
The problem we were talking about. Like, did he?
Yes. 100%. Flair to this day, I don't know what he is. He's in his 70s, I believe. He would wrestle to this day. Jerry Lawler, who did the big thing with Andy Kaufman's a really good friend of mine. Jerry still wrestles. He's in his 70s. And it's not because he needs the money. He's got all the money in the world. But Jerry would wrestle every weekend if he could. But he loves it. Absolutely loves it. And Flair's the same way.
But Flair is so. But it would, so if he would stop, So he never had the downfall like what we're talking about, like alcohol and drugs or something.
Yeah, he did.
You play with him?
I think he did, yes. Because he had a time where he had to stop, and he kind of he always wants to come back, and yeah, I think he had a real tough time when he was forced out of the ring.
Wow.
No doubt about it.
A lot of people have it. I was talking to Pat Miletich. He's the UFC champion as well, and what he did, he said to me, he says, "Boss, I see this. I see what happens to everybody." So he replaced his drug, so to say, with chasing tornadoes. That's his high now. So he's chasing tornadoes. I go, okay.
It's like Michael Jordan said. He gambles all the time, and he goes, "I don't have a gambling problem. I have a competition problem."
Yeah.
He misses the game. He misses, having the ball when there's 2 seconds left, and it's hard to get that replaced.
So, John, are we ever going to see JBL back in the ring ever? Or are you done?
I doubt it. I don't want to get out there. If I thought I could help one of the young guys, yes, I'd do it. But I'd love to. If I could physically, I would do it. I don't think physically I could do it. Yeah. I'd be happy to get out there and manage somebody or do something to help a young talent. I love working with the young guys. I really enjoy trying to give them my philosophy of how to be. I know a lot more about how to be a bad guy than I do a good guy. I know what the bad guy needs from a good guy, but I know exactly what the bad guy needs to do. So I love talking to the young guys who are trying to be the big heels.
Does your bad persona that you did, playing the heel, still get you in trouble till this day? Some people that you meet who don't like you because of that? Yeah,
it does. I've had it's some of my kids didn't understand it. They'd see old tapes and stuff, and they couldn't understand, the stuff with Eddie Guerrero, with The Undertaker, with Booker T, and all this stuff. Fortunately, Ron Simmons was my tag team partner, best friend for so long, first black heavyweight champion in wrestling history. I've got such a great association with Ron that it really helps me. I can rely on being Ron's friend. But yeah, occasionally people still will say, "Man, I remember when you did this. That was really rotten." Guys, come on.
Job well done, right?
Job well done.
You're getting a lot of comments, man. You're getting a lot of comments now about what a great manager you'd be, John, since you brought it up. Ton of comments here. Wanted to let you know.
I'd love to be. The only problem with being a manager is I'm 6'6".
Yeah,
right. And that's tough because I'm so much taller than a lot of the wrestlers.
Yeah.
Not that they're even shorter than they were, but it's hard for tall managers because you want a short manager that makes their guy look really big. When Vince used to do interviews with even Andre the Giant, he would take off his shoes and he'd spread his legs to make himself shorter, to make the guys – you look at the interviewers that they have, they're all small. It's to make the guys look bigger. So I have a little bit against me with my height.
So what's the greatest thing in your life these days? I'm sorry if you were talking about it before. I apologize about my connection. Bean and Bas and Shawn, you guys are amazing MCs. Thanks for taking over. So if I missed it, pardon me. Regardless, what's the greatest thing in your life today about the work that you're doing? What gets you fired up every day?
Breaking generational cycles. You got to break generational cycles to make real systemic change. And if you're not, you're just kind of plugging the gap. I've met a lot of politicians who say, "Hey, we really enjoy what you do. Thank you for doing it." I said, "Well, the reason I'm doing it is because you're not doing your job. If the system wasn't broken, then families and people and entire communities wouldn't be falling through that system." Right. So I really love and help trying to change generational cycles and see that to fruition. When I go back to Bermuda and I see kids that I know we're on a really bad path, and now it's been 8-10 years. They're married. They got families. They got productive citizens. That, to me, is one of the coolest things.
I tell you what's going to be the best for you.
I watched the videos.
And make it big. And then you're going to say, "Man, that I had a part in that." And then when the kid comes to you and tells you had a part in making me where I am, that's what's going to be the best for you, I think.
Yeah, I would. It'd be tough for me to handle. It would be. I think so much of these kids, but that would, when I see something a kid would succeed, it's just, God, it's so cool because kids don't know if they're tough or not. You don't know if you're tough until you have to be tough. And I tell them all that. They go, "Well, we're not tough enough to play rugby. We're not tough enough to do this." And I go, "You don't know. You don't know until you know." And when you see a kid do something and you see a kid succeed, You know, when you take a kid that was reading on an 8th grade level, and by the time he graduates, he's reading on a senior level. You know, that's really cool to see that happen, and to see that young man or woman realize they did that themselves and that they really are smart enough to compete with anybody in the world.
Wow.
Yeah, and I watched some of the video, not some, I watched all the videos that you sent, and it is amazing transformational work you're involved in. If people out here that are watching want to check out what you're doing now, what's the best place to look for that?
Memphis Inner City Rugby, to me, is one of the best charities I've ever been blessed to work with. Those guys there, Shane Young, Devin O'Brien, they started up this. They were former Teach for America kids that went down to Memphis and started up this program, and they're just doing groundbreaking work. And they're creating a curriculum, which I think is really cool, because every charity in the world reinvents the wheel. You know, they reinvent curriculums. They reinvent how do you get kids that are at risk in this area. You know, kids that are at risk in Appalachia are exactly the same kids that are at risk in Malawi or the slums of Mumbai and Delhi. You know, at risk is at risk. And we want to develop a curriculum where we can give it to people and have some success, that a curriculum that's had success where people don't have to reinvent the wheel. And that's one of the most exciting things that I work on.
Let me ask you, JBL, because I've always been kind of curious. Most people that get involved in that type of work, like you're talking about, go to Africa or third world country. Is it harder to do it here? I mean, what's the traction to leave the United States to do that for those guys? I know they need it badly, but like sometimes I watch what our government does for other countries, and I think, why aren't you doing it right here? Like our roads, our highways, our airports, they're crappy compared to flying into like Dubai, or you go over to Turkey, you're like, this is what an airport's supposed to look like. The work that you're doing for those people that definitely need it is also work that's needed here. Is there more red tape here in the United States to do what you do?
Yeah, Shawn, that's a great question, and it's one I've kind of fought with myself. The one of the reasons is money is so stretched in other places. So if you go to the slums of Mumbai and Delhi, or you go to Malawi, which only 9% of the country has electricity, it's one of the poorest areas in the world. And you put $1,000 in, you can affect 1,000 kids.
I got it.
You do that in Harlem, which needs it just as bad. $1,000 doesn't go near as far. So I think a lot of people just think, you know what, I can affect more kids with the money. I think people should be doing it here. And that's why I've worked in Harlem with Play Rugby USA, a group founded by Mark Griffin. I've worked with the Latin Kings and 2-6 Nation gangs out of Chicago, Rob Castanetto, Beyond the Ball, that just do incredible work. I think there is a lot of really good stuff going on here. It's just kind of more romantic for people to say we're working in Malawi or Tanzania or Uganda or Rwanda.
Well, the dollar goes a whole lot farther. I understand that for sure.
Yeah, it does. But, you know, but I agree with you. I think people should be doing stuff in their own backyard.
Yeah.
You know, I don't – nothing against going off and doing great things in different places. I enjoy going and visiting all these places. Yeah. But I think people should be doing stuff in their own backyard because you have so much need everywhere you are.
We do. The red tape in America to try to do something to affect change is just ridiculous. Permits and taxes and all kind of – you can't get anything done here.
Yeah, Shawn, I'll give you a perfect example. In Memphis and Shelby County, they took the rich schools out of the school district and made their own school district. And so what they did was they took the tax base to the schools. Now the inner city low-income schools that we work with are even more underfunded and more understaffed. You know, and that's the red tape you're talking about. It's just tough. You know, politicians in America tend to throw a little bit of money at it just to make themselves feel better, and they really don't do much at all.
Well, it's great stuff you're doing. We're so glad that you're doing it, by the way. Yep. You're not that old. You're 54, 55 years old?
54 years old.
Amazing. I mean, you're younger than me and Bas. I think. How old are you, Butterbean?
55.
Okay, we're all right there, Rick.
I'll be 60 in a month. I'm the senior citizen.
Yeah, you're right there. We're all on the back nine, so to speak. So
that's right.
You can't take it with us. So paying it forward is huge. I appreciate you.
JBL, I got a very serious wrestling question for you. Would Shawn Ray be a better babyface or heel?
Oh, with a body like that, maybe it's got to be a babyface. I'm telling you, he'd be like, you know, when you're good looking like that, got a great body. That's guys that are bad guys are not good looking guys. They're like me. Guys that are good guys that are good looking are like guys like John Cena, The Rock, and Shawn Ray.
There you go. Good company.
There you go.
It's a lot harder, I'm sure, to be a bad guy than a good guy, isn't it? I mean, because you really have to flip the switch.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard for big guys to be good guys because you have to get sympathy on you. So, like for the Undertaker to be a good guy, it's hard to get sympathy on the Undertaker. It's easier for a smaller guy, a guy like Shawn Michaels, who was not a small guy in the world, but a small guy in the wrestling, to get sympathy on that guy. To me, I always thought it was easier to be a heel because I'm able to control things. Being a babyface, you have to make people like you. It's a pretty tough thing to do consistently.
But didn't Hulk Hogan do that? He went over to the dark side?
He did. He did.
How did he do? What kind of grade do you give him?
He's Hogan. So, I interviewed Bruno Sammartino right before he passed away. He's 81 years old. At one point, he broke and he goes, "Are my answers okay?" I said, "You're Bruno Sammartino." Yes. He's Hulk Hogan.
Okay, yeah. I'm with you. Good stuff.
That's awesome. So we're getting a lot of nice comments, and guys, we got it all covered. Icons from boxing, mixed martial arts, bodybuilding, and pro wrestling. And John, you've been such like a great part of the group tonight. Thank you. You're I don't have to point out you're not old, but other than that, what a great fit, man. It's like so good having you here. It's been really cool. Thank you.
Well, I really am fans of all you guys. I've had such a good time. Butterbean was right there. I was the king of the 4-rounder. I had so much fun. I used to love to watch you fight. It was so much fun. And Bas, it's so good to actually meet you because Guy Mesger talks so highly of you. And I remember the day we're sitting there training, and we had been like 2 or 3 days. I was sparring with Guy. I still hadn't hit him. And he told me, he said, "Oh, Bas is on the tour." He was so excited. So he thinks the world of you, and I thought the world of Guy. So it's a pleasure to meet you. And Shawn, I'm telling you, there's not a bigger bodybuilding fan in the world. I grew up, man, on Arnold and Franco and Brigno, and oh man, great times.
Yeah, and Guy Metzger is the man. Guy was a really good friend of mine, and when we were at Pancras, he was a good guy. He super glued my eyes, my eyebrow. What happened was we went to this. I get a telephone call on the day of the fight from Biohazard, the band, and I was a big fan of the band, and they knew that, and they called me, and I say, "Danny from Biohazard, what are you doing?" He says, "Well, we're in Japan, in Tokyo." I go, "Are you kidding?" He says, "We're playing tonight." I said, "Well, we're fighting during the day." I say, "So what if I get you tickets to come to the show, and then we come with all the fighters, we come to your show in the evening?" He says, "Cool." So we invite him to the Korakuen Hall, Rick, where you also did something. So these guys come and we go to their show. So I always wanted to stage dive. So I'm stage diving and I'm seeing the crowd, and I'm on stage and I jump in the air and I land on a person. And I hit him with my head, apparently, and the guy goes down, and I pick him up, and I say, "Oh, I'm sorry, go, sumimasen, come in aside. I'm sorry." So I let him go, and he drops. He's knocked out, right? Oh, so my whole eye is open because apparently I headbutted him the back from his skull. So at that moment, I'm looking, and I see Frank Shamrock. And Frank Shamrock wants to also stage dive, but he tries to do it better than me. So he jumps first on the speaker, so he gets more height, and he jumps up. While he's jumping in the air, he flips, and he's going down. And I see the crowd spread like ants. And I start running, and I slide over the floor. And I swear to God, I think I might have saved his freaking life there. I caught his head in my hand. So I'm spread out and I caught his head. But anyway, we had to go because my whole eye was open. And guy said, "Give me a moment." And he went out and he went to a 7-Eleven, which they also have in Japan.
Yeah.
He came back with super glue. And he super glued my eye closed. And
it's crazy. That's a warrior. That's a war story.
Great guy.
So John, man, John, before you sign off, what is the website address we should send people to take a look at your work?
MemphisInnerCityRugby.org, I believe is what it is.
Say that one more time.
Yeah, MemphisInnerCityRugby.org.
Memphis Inner City.
Yeah, if you tap in Memphis Inner City Rugby in Google, it'll take you to it.
There it is.
right here
Yeah,
on the
we'll put
screen,
it
y'all.
up. There it is right there. We just put it up on the screen, everybody. Please take note of that. Thank you, John Paz or Rachel, whoever did that. We appreciate that. And apologies about the connection. I think that's on my side only. But man, the Butterbean and Bas Rutten and Shawn Ray are amazing interviews. So thank God for you guys. Man, it's really good to see you, John. And let's please stay in touch.
Yeah, guys, thank you very much. I appreciate it. One of the fun things you do, one of the fun things you miss is the camaraderie with guys.
Yeah.
And it's so cool to come on a show like this and be able to just kind of bullshit and have some fun with guys, that you're your age, that are, that did kind of the same type thing, even though it's different sports.
And we were all watched kind of everybody do their thing, and it was very entertaining to say the least. Good to see you on the other side.
Yeah. That's right. Guys, thank you very much. It's an honor to be on with you guys.
Hey,
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Great guy. Wow. He's doing a lot of good stuff.
JBL. Guys, I have a really good connection. It's just so great. And I have a good connection for 1 minute, so I just want to get this out of the way. I'm sincerely sorry for how bad my connection is tonight. You three guys.
Hey, I'll finish up. Rick says, what a great job we did without him. Awesome. Hey, thanks, Rick, for letting us know that.
And he's gone again.
Let's do it again next week.
Fun tonight, guys. I really had a good time.
Who's coming on next week? I think, do we know yet or not? Too early.
Wait, I think, let me see. Kurt Angle might have been coming on October 6th, I believe. Yeah. So Kurt Angle, whoa, that's a big one, guys.
Yeah, that's a big one. Lots to be learned from Kurt Angle. What was his nickname? Do you remember his nickname?
I don't know. Rick?
Rick's back. Rick's popping in and out like it's Groundhog Day.
He's too old for this show.
Hey, guys, if you want to find out his nickname,
what did you say, Eric?
Hey, if everybody wants to find out what his nickname was, tune in and watch next week.
Tune in next week.
We're gonna ask him.
Well, why don't you take us out of here, Butterbean? We'll get to next week sooner than later.
Hey, Shawn Ray, Boss, Rick, y'all have an awesome evening, my friends.
You know the pose.
This is the freaking MMA pose for Bas Rutten.
Love it.